Hello, and welcome back to the podcast that must not be named. I am Melissa.
I'm basically Luke.
I'm glad you've decided that. And we are here discussing Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, chapter number 8, The Flight of the Fat Lady. This chapter was 21 pages long, which was 6.8% of the book.
And now, a voice of the Imaginary Legion.
Chapter 8, Exodus of the Elephantine Woman. Oliver Wood called a meeting for the Gryffindor Quidditch team. He was talking about how they had to win the Quidditch Cup that year. They also had the first Hogsmeade weekend of the year, and Harry was very upset that he was going to be the only third-year student who wasn't going. He decided to ask Professor McGonagall if he could go, even though he hadn't gotten the permission slip signed. Before Transfiguration, Harry started to think about how he was going to ask McGonagall if he could go to Hogsmeade. When he did ask McGonagall, she said no, so he was going to be the only third year not going. While everyone was at Hogsmeade, Harry was walking around the school, and when he walked past Professor Lupin's office, the professor told him to come in. They were having tea and talking about the boggart. Harry was wondering why Professor Lupin hadn't let Harry fight the boggart, and he asked Lupin, and he said that it was because he was worried that the boggart would have taken the shape of Voldemort. Then Snape walked in with a potion for Lupin, and Harry was suspicious about it. When Ron and Hermione got back from Hogsmeade, they told him all about it. Then they all went down to the Halloween feast. After the feast, when they got back to the entrance to the common room, they saw it was closed and that nobody was going in. Since Percy was the head boy, he asked everyone to let him through. When he got to the portrait, he told someone to go get Professor Dumbledore. Dumbledore got there, and Harry, Hermione, and Ron scooted in closer to see what had happened. They got a closer look and saw that the fat lady was gone, and that the canvas was torn. Peeves was floating above the students and professors. Professor Dumbledore asked Peeves if the fat lady had said who had done it, and he said that it had been Sirius Black.
We did have a character introduction for the first time in a little while, it seems like. We've had a couple misses, which is odd. I feel like we usually have pretty consistent new characters and locations. We had a plethora of everything this chapter. The one character introduction we had was a mention of Pinky the Rabbit.
Aw, Binky.
Right?
Aw, Binky.
Oh. Schmur.
Right. We had several locations that, again, were mentioned. We didn't get to go to a lot of them. We didn't get to go to Zonko's Jokes shop. We didn't get to go to the Shrieking Shack. We did not visit Honeyduke's sweet shop. We didn't get to see the owls at the Owl Post Office. We did not get to drink anything at Three Broomsticks. And we even didn't get to actually make it to visit Hedwig in the Owlery.
Right? We were close.
We heard a lot of places we didn't go to.
And neither did Harry.
Aww.
Which was one of the themes of this chapter. Some magicabulary. We had a lot of new creatures, beasts introduced in this chapter. The first one being redcaps, which were nasty little goblin-like creatures that lurked wherever there had been bloodshed, like castle dungeons and battlefields.
We had some kappas, those creepy water dwellers that look a little bit like scaly monkeys.
There was also the Grindylow, which was a sickly green creature with sharp little horns and long spindly fingers, described as a water demon.
We had Puffapod.
Yeah, they were working on a Puffapod together in herbology.
Oh, and flobberworms.
And also stink pellets and hot butterbeer.
Butterbeer. Oh, I want some hot butterbeer. I've had cold butterbeer, but I've heard the hot butterbeer is the best version.
Yeah, I've got some cold butterbeer right now, but it's a little short on the butter. So
yeah, no.
It's not quite the same.
No, it's not. I would like some hot butterbeer, please. So we have an interesting-ish illustration here for chapter number 8. It's a smoking goblet.
Yeah, I would assume what we just talked about, hot butterbeer is what I'm guessing.
Oh, no, see, I disagree. I think it's the potion Snape made for Lupin.
Let me look at the description of what they of what Snape's potion apparently looks like.
All right.
Snape sat down, the smoking goblet, his eyes wandering between Harry and Lupin. Okay. I mean, I could still see it either way because it could just be steam off of a hot butterbeer, potentially. But yeah, no, I missed the smoking potion description. So I'm going to say you're probably right, but I think it's maybe a little bit of both.
I actually don't think it's a hot butterbeer because we don't ever get to actually see it. And typically the illustrations are things we see within the chapter. So I agree that it could be, but I think it is most likely supposed to be a potion.
Fair enough. I'll concede this one.
Thank you. All right, so let's go ahead and Luke, what were some of your thoughts as we jump into chapter number 8?
So this is another one of the chapters that you had done your notes first, and I saw that you had a lot in there. And so mine are definitely not chronological, but we'll go through them real quick, and then I'll riff off of what you have here as we go along. Okay. Do you think Crookshanks is being a normal cat, or do you think Ron is correct and it has some kind of grudge for Scabbers?
Who says that normal cats can't have grudges?
Ron's convinced that Crookshanks has it out for Scabbers specifically. Why would that be? Because
he's the only rat available. It's not like other people have rats there. I would be curious. See, this is where I want to do.
What about
like
Trevor the Toad? Does
But it's not like you have cats that go toading, but you do have cats that are good at mousing. So I feel like we need to set up an experiment where I have like the control rat and the Scabbers rat, and we see if Crookshanks only goes after Scabbers or if it's after all rats. Right. At that point, I feel like I can back Ron a little more.
But any good scientific study, you need multiple rounds of this case study. There's only one Scabbers in the population. So if it goes after, one versus one, takes out Scabbers right away, that's an inconclusive either way. Not a good test, unfortunately.
But I mean, we don't even have like a non-Scabbers rat available.
That's true. Yeah.
That's the point. We need a non-Scabbers rat available to see if it's just Scabbers or if it's a rat thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, Ron's taking it pretty hard. And
I can see why.
Ron and Hermione are definitely at odds now. How do you think of their it's a little bit of a change in relationship, change in dynamic at least?
Well, usually Hermione is very much above all of the emotion of things. And it is strange to me that she can't take her emotions out of it. Or she's using her logic to sort of twist it to fit her emotions. I love my cat, so I'm going to try to use logic to twist what I'm saying so that you see it from my point of view. Oh, Ron, no, all cats go after. Oh, Ron, you're overreacting and not actually taking a step back to see if he might be more correct.
Sure. Yeah, no, and it's hard, because she feels maybe like she's being attacked because, she's in a defensive position to defend Crookshanks because, hey, just because I have this cat, it's an issue now. It's unfortunate that this is happening, but let's take a step back and like you had just previously said, I don't think there's any reason the cat should be going specifically after Scabbers other than he's the only one available, like you were saying. It's pretty reasonable to me. But yeah, she has a hard time seeing his side of it too. And I don't know. It's interesting to see these two at odds in a little bit different ways than you normally see their characters.
I agree with you.
So we then kind of have the discussion where Harry is trying to get his permission slip kind of nullified by McGonagall, and before that, there's the whole discussion of, hey, it's October, and everyone turn in your permission forms now. Literally, Neville, round-faced, forgetful, is going to forget where he placed his, and he walks up and says, I don't know where I put mine, and McGonagall just flat out says, your grandmother sent it to me directly. Yeah, that was probably a good choice. What do you think? I
actually think that's the only Guardian that's doing a good job. Here's why I say that.
Well, it's 3 months later.
They got those letters on July 31st. Mm-hmm. She's not asking for them until about October 28th.
Right, yeah, because this is just before Halloween.
Right. You're telling me that these 13-year-olds are going to keep the same piece of paper randomly in a safe place? I mean, Hermione will.
Right, but the overall average population, no.
Right. Over under is there. So, of course, you send it directly. And why is she only asking now? Why isn't it a, hi, welcome to Hogwarts. Give me your Hogsmeade form so I have it on file.
Mm-hmm. Or why aren't they in general just owl posted from the parents? Like, hey, we signed it so that there's less forgery involved by students too, because that was even offered up in this chapter.
Also true. So I feel like they're just not setting them up unless they're purposely doing it like, don't lose it or you're not going.
And that's, you have to show responsibility. I'm okay with that idea. I could be sold on that. But I feel like that should be a little more explicit. There's a lot of things around Hogwarts where it's like, well, you just better be okay with it. Like, just treat this as a learning experience. And it's kind of irresponsible sometimes of the school.
Can I jump on that again? I'm sorry. It's the book
quickly
bandwagon. Yeah. We went from hippogriffs to flobberworms with absolutely no oversight.
What's wrong with that?
Progression of subject. Again, no curriculum oversight. I swear. They're like, I am not one for too much in the classroom, but at the same time, how do you know the kids are learning what they're supposed to by just saying, oh, you like the subject, good luck.
Because you have you have a content expert in charge of the class
with no direction on what the content was before he got the job or content for after the job.
He's got
and
the job.
There's no
now.
continuity year to year when it comes to Defense Against the Dark Arts.
Oh yeah, no, it's a garbage education for sure.
And that's not entirely true. Like, I firmly believe their charms education and their transfigure education,
but
transfiguration education. Ooh, that's a word.
Transfiguration education.
There you go. Those and potions. I think those are solid things
because they're the only teachers that continue on the position regularly.
But but even Lupin seems like a really good teacher. But he doesn't know what they've come in with. He doesn't know what like the standard third year expectations are. The only reason I know they're getting a good transfiguration education is because McGonagall has been doing it for so long that she has a system. I'm going to do this in first year and this in second year and this in third. Without any sort of document guiding a new person, you don't have that. It's just based on their person, regardless of how good they are. Sorry, I think that's the public school teacher in me. That's just, I can't let it go. I'm sorry, folks.
Well, start letting it go. And let's talk about Colin and his friends. Nothing specific other than I want to like Colin. Like, I get it. I feel for him. Like, he's a nice kid. But I get why Harry's so annoyed by him, too. It's just like, I can't even storm off to the common room to hang out by myself. I'm just going to get badgered by this well-meaning kid. But I just want some space right now. Like, and he's not going to get that.
I mean, he could go up to his room. Why aren't they allowed to do that? Nobody ever seems to like, oh, it's the middle of the day. I'm going to go hang out like in my room and just read in my bed or something.
Maybe they could. I'm sure there's no one saying, hey, that's against the rules or anything. It's probably he would just rather maybe sit by the fire or, have a nice cushy chair in the common room. But it also kind of regardless of where he's going, instantly when he walks in the door, he gets 100% Colin up in his face. Like, give me a second, man. Jeez. You know what I mean?
I do. And I agree. Colin is a little much. I wonder how Colin's friends feel about how Colin feels about Harry.
It seemed like they were kind of like nodding and like excited, like, oh, he's going to come play gobstones with us or whatever they were doing. Like, oh, it's going to be so neat. It feels like they're on a similar page. He's just the more charismatic one, maybe.
Maybe that's what it is. All right, hang on. I'm taking my loud jacket off.
Gosh, it's so loud. Podcast listeners deserve better.
That's what editing is for.
So I think the entire discussion about the boggart is great. Between Harry kind of tentatively, saying, "Oh, there's nothing bothering me," and then quickly saying, "Well, yeah, there is." He takes the initiative, he takes the step forward, and is honest with Lupin. And he's like, "Hey, I'm just kind of wondering, like, what was the deal with that?" And Lupin, he is like, "Oh, I thought that'd be pretty obvious. Like Voldemort showing up in the room, not the best idea." And it just turned into a nice discussion of, oh, the similar to, like, oh, well, it's cool that you're afraid of fear. That's pretty wise. And
I have two thoughts on this. One, we have seen Harry dummy up a lot in the face of adult questioning. He did it with Stan Shunpike. He did it with Vernon. He does it with
Fudge.
Cornelius Fudge. Like, he just sort of sits there and lets the adult go and doesn't say much. But it says a lot for how much of a relationship Lupin has built with even this early on in the year, that Harry feels comfortable enough to say no and tell him how he's really feeling. We don't see Harry do that to adults very often. This might be the first time we really see it without him being prodded by McGonagall or someone, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a good relationship building scene. They definitely seem to start to understand each other a bit, and that's just good for Harry, because he doesn't his list of adults that he's got a list that he definitely respects and trusts, but the ones that he can actually talk to is different than the list that's looking out for him. He's got Hagrid, which I'm not going to Hagrid bash, but sometimes that's not the most reliable person to get your advice from.
I think it's more like Hagrid is more of like the older brother friend as opposed to like an adult that I go to when I'm really worried about something.
Right. The older brother or
important.
Like irresponsible uncle or kind of thing. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Lupin's giving him a new outlet for discussion.
Like, he has Dumbledore
sparingly, and he's withdrawn. You can tell things are you're only getting part of the story. And
you only get to talk to him at the end of the year.
Right. You only get one time a year.
So we're not there yet. It's only Halloween.
Yeah, no, we got months.
I have always read this section about Harry being afraid of Dementors and Lupin saying, oh, that makes me feel like, what you're really afraid of is fear.
Mm-hmm.
Has it struck anybody else as a complete riff on Franklin Delano Roosevelt's "the only thing to fear is fear itself"? I have always read it like that.
Yeah, I always read it like that. Even when I was like 12 or 13, I guess, when I read this, I was like, huh, that seems familiar with one of the most well-known American presidential speeches of all time. Like, at least recorded speeches. Like,
yes.
Yeah, I recognize this. At least the idea of it. And
I can even do the voice. I'm not going to do the voice, but I kind of like that if that was intentional.
I think it was. I mean, just in learning more about J.K. Post books and everything, I think I've read that it was intended to be kind of paying homage to that ideal, at least.
Okay, good.
So, but I could be wrong on that. But I think she's been quoted as saying that she took inspiration from that, which is fair,
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good thing to be inspired by.
Yeah, I think so. So my next note, about 200 owls, all sitting on shelves, all color-coded on how fast you want your letter to get there. This is Hermione being really excited about how neat the Owl Post office was. And you and I have discussed Owl Post quite a bit because, I don't know, it's definitely one of the more fascinating things that we don't get a whole lot of information about, like how it works, because it's just like, oh, it works. That's like all we get. Hey, this works. And
we don't tend to be people who just believe when things work.
I know. And I just find this interesting that, all of them are color-coded by how fast.
I have a question before you get too far on that. Color-coded, like, based on their actual feather color-coded like the birds have been dipped into colors themselves, or color-coded like they have a color tag on their feet?
That is exactly the question that I was getting to. Exactly.
Oh my God, that's hysterical.
And I was like, I wonder what, Hedwig's white means. Is she middle of the road? Is she all the way at the end of one of the other spectrums? Like all the other owls that we've seen, the tawny brown owls from Hogwarts, are those like the elite super fast owls? Like, but then I was like, it's probably more of like a tag, like a they put it like on their ankle, like that's what I was thinking.
Well, I assumed
more likely,
that
at least.
too, because Hedwig doesn't have one, and we've never heard of the Hogwarts owls having them, and Errol doesn't have one. So I wonder if that's like more to signify that they are
official owl post office owls.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so, as opposed to a personal career.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
How does one aspire to become a post office owl? Is there some sort of training?
I I'm sure in the 5-chap recap we can get into owl breeding and the potentials that might lead to. I don't know. We'll maybe a discussion for another day. Not that I have any thoughts, but I need to think about that one for a while, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So add that note to the recap.
Owl post office breeding. All right.
And trading.
All right.
And application.
Okay. Or do you have an owl you're looking to get applied?
Well, I really wanted to get my owl into like one of the Ivy League owl schools, but I'm thinking it might have to be a state school where he just ends up working for like the newspaper.
Well, but that's not always a bad choice because, you have less upfront cost and you can get in the workforce quicker sometimes.
That's true. See, I'm telling you, there's all kinds of things we can talk about with Outpost.
All right. Oh yeah, the fan theories about the conspiracy fan theories about Outpost. We're working on it, folks. Hey, in this book, guess what? Snape is a suspect again. Like, are we crying wolf at this point? With Snape being malicious towards people, yeah, we're getting a lot of evidence that, hey, he seems to be scowling more towards Lupin or whatever, but, like, it's hard for me not to look at this and think, Harry, stop focusing on the guy so much. I know it's hard to turn that off. I get that. You don't like him. He doesn't like you.
Can't you just not like each other and move on?
Just leave it at that? Hey, is that not enough for you? Is this not enough?
Or is it because, I'm the great Harry Potter, and therefore anybody who doesn't like me must have, like, malicious ulterior motives? Exactly.
And maybe he's, who knows? He could be, right? Because, but
he hasn't been yet.
I know. But Harry's perceptions are very skewed when it comes to Snape. So the perspective that we're getting, I don't know, probably potentially unreliable.
Hey, speaking of people who are not so nice to Harry.
Yeah.
I would like to just point out Draco Malfoy in this chapter really
Somebody
feels
say
to me,
Draco Malfoy?
Let me roll on the floor a little bit. And Luke is reenacting a Harry Potter musical. Oh, by the way, if you've never seen the Harry Potter musical on YouTube, the girl who plays Draco Malfoy is literally the best part of the entire show.
And yes, the girl who plays Draco Malfoy.
That's right.
That was a correct
I said
statement.
it correctly.
That was a correct statement.
So speaking of Draco Malfoy, I can't even do it. So every time he speaks in this chapter, it's like a random insult from nowhere. So at one point he says, look at the state of his robes. He dresses like our old house elf, he says about Lupin. And then at another time when they're all going to Hogsmeade and Harry can't go, Malfoy just randomly shouts, staying here, Potter? Scared of passing the Dementors? Like everything he says, to me, it feels like, you know how recently on Facebook has always had like these random take this quiz and find out your, favorite ice cream based on your best color combination, like all kinds of those stupid
What
quizzes.
state should you be from? Like,
right.
There's a bunch of them. Yeah.
And I always get like Montana, which is absolutely wrong for me because
I get
it's
Pennsylvania,
cold.
and I'd probably be able to with that, I think.
So anyway, but recently it's like even less helpful. It's literally you just click a button and it picks a random phrase for you, like who's going to be your person sitting next to you in the car, or what's going to be on your tombstone, or like literally just by clicking your profile. There's no work you have to put into it. That's Draco Malfoy. He is now a nametest.com. You click the button and he throws a random insult at you.
Random insult generator.
Button. Click. Hey, Four Eyes, watch where you're going, right? Like, just something dumb.
Yeah, they're not even, like, funny most of the time. Like, it's like, oh, Potter, still don't have any parents, right? Like, when was that going to change? Like,
right. It's like saying, oh, Neville, still forgetful, right?
Oh, Harry, still friends with Weasley, huh?
Oh, Weasley, still have red hair.
But you're still poor. Like, we get it. Like, these are characteristics at this point. Like, you're not impressing anybody. And if you are, they're dull. The person you're impressing is the idiot.
And if you really wanted to insult them, you're not very creative about it.
Right. I'm all for a good insult. Like, if it's well placed, I think it comes down to the diction. If it's well dictated, then I'm all for it.
I feel like he needs to go to like the local corner bar and do some rounds of stand up to test out his new material.
Yeah,
Because
that's fair.
it's just not working.
I agree. I agree.
Okay, so Snape being the extra jerk. I know you talked about it a little bit. You think it's setting up Snape as like the big bad possible, why are we overreacting to him? At the beginning of the chapter in particular, it says that he was being extra mean to them because of the boggart. And, you know, he had to wear a dress and a vulture hat and have a handbag. And I can't decide if him being an extra jerk is him overreacting because they're laughing at him. Like, dude, let it go.
Right.
It's just a kid thing. Or if, as a teacher, that's exactly what I would do, because how dare you use me and make me a bigger fool, like turn me into a fool and then end up being like the tough guy. I actually think he's overreacting, but part of me might actually have the same overreaction.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like it stems from the same place, really. You know, it has the same intention behind it, but I don't know. I mean, I get it.
But is it more like I am going over the top to teach you the lesson, or I'm going over the top because my emotions are doing it? Like, am I doing it by choice or just my emotions getting the best of me?
Or protecting your pride kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's Snape probably overreacting.
That's what I figured. He's just a jerk.
Yeah.
He's definitely upped his jerk game. Like each chapter, it gets a little worse.
Yeah, probably. It's been fairly up this book, yeah. I would say.
I just think it's building though too. I mean, it's not like a huge slope, but it's increasing.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So I have a continuity issue that I found.
Hit me with it.
Okay. I believe, and I did not go back and fact check, so I believe back in book 1, it was stated that they had not won that Gryffindor had not won the House Cup in 7 years when Charlie Weasley was the Seeker. And you and I did quite a long riff finding out exactly when that was.
Which in editing, I trimmed down and we sounded a lot smarter on the recording, on the final product.
I have no idea what you're talking about. We are that smart to begin with.
You did all the legwork on it. I was lost.
Okay. So it was 7 years before year 1, according to year 1. Now in year 3, Oliver says, Gryffindor hasn't won in 7 years now. He uses the same line. So he doesn't use the same line? Okay, go ahead. Fix me.
Okay. In book 1, it's very clear that it had been 7 years since they won the Hogwarts House Cup, right?
Okay.
Here he is talking about the Quidditch Cup. 2 different trophies. It's been 7 years since now that they haven't won the Quidditch Cup. I looked it up.
Okay, good. So they won 5 years before.
Correct.
Okay.
And if year 1, if we went back and looked at our discussion that we had in book 1 for Charlie, like basically the age of Charlie Weasley.
Yes.
I think we backed into that, but just I could see where reading this, because I saw your note, I was like, that doesn't seem right. But it clearly says been 7 years since we won the House Cup in book 1, and then here he's very clearly talking about the Quidditch Cup, which would have been 5 years before book 1.
So to clarify, 7 years ago, Gryffindor won the Quidditch Cup and still lost the House Cup.
Mm-hmm.
So it's possible.
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty common, really. I mean, yeah, you can get a lot of points, but as long as there's no Harry, Ron, and Hermione's in your year, you're not going to lose 150 points in one swoop too often.
Well, unless you have the Weasleys.
Well, but you know what I mean? Like those kinds of students in your year or your house, it seems pretty reasonable that, if you're, because we said it's a minimum of like 450 points if you're catching the snitch to win all 3 Quidditch matches to win the Quidditch Cup. So that,
minus whatever difference the other team may or may not have had.
Right, yeah. So, that's right, because it subtracts out. That's right. So that's even lower. But yeah, I think that probably happens more often than we think.
Okay, can we talk about Hermione and Lavender and the bunny?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Hermione's not wrong. If you look at the situation logically, it was a baby bunny. Baby bunnies are not an expectation to die. And it had to have died prior to Friday the 16th because she got the information. Hermione's not wrong. However, I don't know if Hermione knows to just be quiet and not say that. Of course, Hermione is right, but being right in that moment is not as important as being nice.
You can't logic your way out of emotions. That's the
Ew.
part that Hermione has no idea about. I think she's starting to see that because she's run into it over and over. And I think this is a pretty good point that she's clearly like being put on the spot, at least. Like, hey, why are you being such a jerk about this? Like, you don't have to just be right to be right. Like, just because you're right doesn't mean it makes her feel any better. What's more important right now?
And here's the thing, like I read it again, and I actually think Hermione says it in a way that she thinks she's being very tactful.
She thinks she's playing the devil's advocate. She's like, let's question this. Like, let's kind of work through this.
But she specifically does it like hesitatingly. It says Hermione hesitates and she pauses and so I don't think she's being that full on know-it-all Hermione. It's done. I think it's done in a way that she feels like
this is a step in her recovery.
Right.
That's how I look at it.
But she doesn't know to just stop talking. She doesn't have to keep going. You just don't say anything. You talk about it later. You bring it up with Harry and Ron and say, what do you think about it? And they're going to tell you, no, don't say anything. But
or
Hermione,
like, yeah, you're right.
As nice as she's trying to be, can't not be right.
Yeah. And I think she can probably logic herself out of emotions, but not,
right.
I mean, very few people, especially a character that we already know is before this whole scene happened, we hear over and over how Parvati and Lavender are just all still completely enamored with Professor Trelawney. So this is only giving more credence to that. So it's more, validation for their trust and belief in her.
Right.
That any logic you put to this is only going to make them your enemy more at this point. Like you're not doing yourself any favors, Hermione.
No, not at all.
Don't play ball in this fight. Like you just don't want it. It's not good for you.
I really like the scene where Lupin has Harry come in and he says, "Oh, would you like some tea? I'm afraid I only have tea bags. But, you might have had enough with tea leaves for a while." I love that he makes fun of him. I love it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's good to see, he's got his ear to the Lupin has his ear to the ground on
he's in the loop.
Right, exactly. He's been looping, if you will.
Oh,
and
dad joke night.
Yikes. we'll be here all night.
But not Draco.
It's just nice to see that, it gives more credence to him having a good relationship with Harry, that he kind of similar to what Hagrid does, kind of gives him a little, elbow to the ribs every once in a while. It, kind of keeps him honest. That's pretty funny.
I like that. Okay, so we have our third Halloween feast. We didn't get to go to last year's because we were at the Death Day party.
Right. And then and then Kitty Cat, all that fun stuff.
Huh?
Mrs. Norris.
Right. But do you realize this is Hermione's first Halloween feast?
Oh yeah, definitely.
She's never gotten to go before.
Yeah, because she was in the bathroom crying her eyes out. Thanks, Harry and Ron.
You're welcome.
Halloween
and then she had to go to a Death Day party. Thanks, Harry and Ron.
Right.
And then she couldn't get into her room because it'd been attacked. Thanks, Sirius Black.
Right.
Hermione does not have the world's strongest track record for Halloween. I mean,
at least
Harry and Ron don't either, but they've at least gotten to eat.
Yeah, that's a pretty big plus.
Yeah. Speaking of the Halloween feast, I think I would really like to see formation floating and beheading reenactment.
Yeah, the entertainment provided by the ghosts, the Hogwarts ghosts, was definitely a part I didn't quite remember, because it's just it's a really quick, like 3-line paragraph, and it's one that I just didn't remember. And it's like, imagining it is so funny. Like, what's the Bloody Baron doing? Or, what? It's nice to see some livelihood out of the ghosts.
How did they get the Bloody Baron to agree to that in the first place?
Yeah. Right.
So this is the kind of thing that I wish there were more of in the movies. And I hate to I know I don't like to talk about the movies. I get verklempt, but
talks about yourselves.
I'll give you a topic. Christopher Columbus should not do sky shots of Hogwarts Castle. Discuss. Okay. So, and while I'm very glad it's a different director this time, however, Rowling gives us so many little moments like this You don't need all of the other things. Can we? I mean, I'm not saying we have to do a beheading reenactment. I get it. It's going to be like a kid's movie, sort of. But formation floating. Couldn't you see John Cleese doing the beheading reenactment, though? Wouldn't that be
I think I
like
have seen him do
green
that.
Gold?
Yeah, I feel like I
It's
have
not
seen
Monty
John.
Python, not Monty Python. Harry Potter.
Right. I was going to say,
John
I
Cleese
guarantee
film.
I've seen John Cleese do something exactly like this. And it's great. It's gold.
Exactly. See, it would have been perfect. And you
Yeah.
just need to put it in the background. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, you don't have to,
It doesn't even have to be Halloween.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't need to be the main focus of the scene. It can just be happening. A little Easter egg for the readers watching the movie. 'Cause
Exactly.
there are a lot of things that are cut out like that, and another one which we're
The
kind of
Cupids.
about to get to, which is Peeves. Like,
Ugh.
that's such a, I don't know. It's a non-consequential character overall. I get it.
I disagree.
Plot-wise, he doesn't drive many things from what we've seen. Here and there, little bits, nothing that couldn't be done by somebody else, but the Hogwarts culture that is provided by having a character like Peeves is exactly what we're talking about here. And that's why I think it misses it so much, because it gives such instant depth that, hey, there's this huge, and we don't want to keep going on about the movies, but like there's this huge other part of the Hogwarts castle that is just kind of lacking.
Yeah, I think you lose the depth of the age of the place and it adds to the magicalness. And I get that it probably cost too much to have a floating poltergeist, especially when these movies first came out. The CGI of it probably was a lot harder. But man, poltergeists and ghosts, and they should have been in it a lot more. Like they disappeared after I think the first book they had a lot. The second movie you saw like one, and then after that, I don't remember seeing a ghost.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll keep an eye
We'll have
on
to
it
watch
since
that.
we have all of those other movies coming up, but I think we can easily keep an eye on that as we move forward.
Yeah.
All right.
Do we have any ghost sightings? So my last kind of big thought is a Dumbledore-y thought.
Dumbledorian thought.
10 points from Gryffindor.
100 billion points for Gryffindor.
So there's a big holdup at the door. Nobody at the front realizes something is wrong and starts passing the word back. Like we have to wait for Percy to get there. So that's just a random comment. Come on now. But my real thought is we hear Percy say, somebody get Dumbledore. Poof, there's Dumbledore. Somebody get me $1 million. Poof, there's $1 million.
I'm on my way. there he
I heard
is.
my name. 17 floors above me.
Now that is a responsible headmaster. I mean, come on, talk about being summoned.
Except he's never around when anybody else ever needs him. How'd he get there so fast?
Well, there's a lot of answers and none of them are good. Like all of them are just like, oh, it's either just magic or luck
Or a secret elevator passageway.
or it's Dumbledore or like, oh, Gryffindor is his old house, so he's just gonna be there. Like, I don't know. Because we don't know that his office and or living quarters is very far from Gryffindor Tower. I don't know if we have much indication on that. We don't know that his office and his living quarters are the same place, do we? I think Harry assumes that, but
far his office is from
right.
Gryffindor Tower.
I think it's like the third floor somewhere, and this is something that I should know, but not
I know,
something
I feel like I should do. I don't.
it was
We fail you. Sorry, people.
Yep. So if you know, let us know.
We know other things.
And so I'm gonna go with there is maybe some kind of headmaster alarm or like alert thing that goes off, like, oh, an entire house is trapped out of their room, like something that the castle itself is aware of.
Oh, okay.
And that's all I'm getting at. So something like some kind of magical presence that, or magical awareness that the castle has. And clearly, I mean, we've talked about how Dumbledore is almost synonymous with the castle, and I think that's probably fairly common for Hogwarts headmasters, like while they're in their term or whatever. So I'm going to go with there is some kind of magical connection between Dumbledore and the castle itself that it alerted him somehow, and he can just get there really quickly.
Almost like he has a pager.
Yeah, he's got a beeper.
Okay. All right. So I think that wraps up our notes. Luke, should we jump right into your 5 burning questions with our fireproof boots?
We should.
Okay.
All right, I've got my fireproof boots and my red tunic on. Let's go
Excellent.
Triforce.
All right.
All right, question 1. Do you believe Peeves? Black couldn't possibly be inside Hogwarts, right?
I don't want him to be. And Peeves is known to be something of a trickster. However, this is kind of a big deal, and I don't know if Peeves could lie to Dumbledore. I think that's the thing that makes me want to believe him, because I think he might get a little smarmy, and even says, like, he didn't dare taunt Dumbledore. Instead, he adopted an oily voice that was no better than his cackle. And that makes me believe that, yeah, he's probably right. I don't know how, unless Black used the same entrance nobody seems to know about that Quirrell used to let in the troll in the first year.
Right. It's a pretty big door somewhere.
Right. I don't know.
Yeah, the only thing that makes me question it is kind of like what you started off with, is Peeves is an instrument of chaos, is what I'll say it. I mean, that's his shtick. So why not take this precarious moment and, hey, let's ratchet this up, like let's put this to 11. But it goes to 11. Why don't they just make 10 a little bit louder and just call it 10? But it goes to 11. Yeah, anyway. I don't know, but I think you're right. He's got some kind of respect for Dumbledore that he probably either doesn't lie to him or almost can't because of Dumbledore's position.
Right. Well, and let's think about what you said. He's an agent of chaos. You're telling me this isn't chaos enough? I mean, this is probably one of the biggest things that's happened to him in a while. So, like, it's probably just right up his alley, and he's good with it being just that.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and find out if we get any more proof.
Or more Peeves. Come on, Peeves.
Yeah, definitely. Question 2. Which store in Hogsmeade would you spend the most time in?
So I really thought about this question, and I'm going to base my answer off of the kind of time I spend in stores now. I spend most of my time at Target.
Okay.
I just do. So then I started looking at, like, realistically, which of these stores is most like Target. And I believe it's going to be Dervish and Bangs, the wizarding equipment shop. Because at first I thought Dervish and Bangs, a wizarding equipment shop. I saw equipment. I thought, oh, it's got to be a sporting equipment. No. It's the equipment you need to wizard.
Yeah, I actually think like potion making stuff and...
Right.
Yeah.
Like... Because that's what I get at Target. I get my cleaning supplies. And
you
I
get your
my
potion
shampoo,
making stuff. You're quite the...
And I get my paper towels and my
quite the
household
homemaker
necessities. Right. So I feel like Dervish and Bangs is the Wizarding World version of Target or Walmart. Or
it's at least closer than the other ones are.
Right. Now, I think I would really enjoy going to Honeyduke's once, but I do not frequent candy stores, like, ever. So that's not one that I'm going to be drawn back to over and over again. My other draw was the 3 broomsticks, which doesn't quite answer your question because you said store.
I would definitely throw that in. I actually thought about rewording it to say like attractions, but
or locations and Hogsmeade.
I just meant shops.
Right. For 2 reasons. 1, again, hot butterbeer, and 2, Shrek was there.
Shrek was there?
Shrek, yes. Here's the line. We think we saw an ogre.
That's right.
Honestly, you get all sorts at the 3 broomsticks.
That's right. I mean, I wonder if Donkey was there too. Or Lord Farquaad.
Now I'm a flying talking donkey. Who? So, yeah, like, you never know who you're going to see
3
in the shop around the corner.
Would definitely be my number 1.
Right.
That'd be an easy one for me. Question.
Well, that's all you do. You're just going to go and have all the butter beers and non-butter beers.
I would definitely step into Zonko's, check it out. Maybe, it's a quick stop though. I don't think you need to spend a lot of time there. You're not, some people will, but I'm not the guy that's going to stay there for hours and
that's how I feel about Honeyduke's. And I agree with you for both of those places.
I would swipe through, hey, I like those. I'm going to get a handful of those and I'm going to take them to the 3 broomsticks and hang out for a while.
And maybe dip them in my butterbeer.
Yeah, some of them. I absolutely.
Right. Sounds good.
Question 3. Which of the creatures in Defense Against the Dark Arts class you think would be the most difficult to deal with?
The Dementor? Or the Boggart,
in this chapter. Sorry. So there was the Red Caps, the Kappas, and...
the Grindylow.
Yeah, they haven't really dealt with it yet, but...
No, but it was mentioned.
Count. Yeah, we'll count it. I'll even throw in flobber worms from Scare Magical Creatures.
Oh man, totally scared of worms. They freak me out. And that's not untrue.
That's not untrue.
The worms freak me out. I don't want to do flabberworms. No, thank you. Especially if I'm supposed to keep it alive. It sounds like all the other things I get to kill. So, or dismember, or somehow keep them from. So, like, as much as the red caps and the creepy, the red caps being creepy things that like Bloodshed Place, and kappas, which are monkeys, and monkeys are weird, and Grindilo, which are the green things with the long fingers, at least I get to learn how to stop them. But flabberworms, I have to keep a worm alive?
They don't even know what it eats. They
No.
just kept shoving lettuce down its throat. That was hilarious.
If they could find its throat. I am going to say I would not like, besides the flabberworms, I would not like to meet the red caps, because I can stay away from the kappas and Grindilo by staying out of water.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like, oh, Jaws? How was that a scary movie? Stay out of the bleeding water.
Well, it helps that we live in the middle of a continent.
Yeah, it's never been an issue for me.
No.
That movie does nothing for me.
No.
Oh, I'll just stay out of the water.
However,
that's all to that.
Earthquake movies, collapsed cave movies, things I might.
Nah.
Okay. All right.
How
about you?
Unlikely.
What creature do you want to?
I think the red caps would probably be the thing that seems the most dangerous. I mean, they're called goblin-like creatures, which makes me think of the goblins at Gringotts, which, I mean, they're basically humanoid from what we can tell. I don't know. They're probably fairly intelligent compared to, a scaly monkey. I don't know. I just comparatively
might be more of a being than a creature.
Right. So I think the danger of that, which is weird that they have a defense against the dark arts class about something like that. I don't know. It seems a little creature biased to me.
All of the things they're doing in defense against dark arts seem kind of creature related, but maybe that's the 3rd-year plan.
Yeah. Yep. There you go.
Maybe Lupin found an old plan somebody had once upon a time and said, hey, this is a good idea.
Or maybe he's been a 3rd year before.
Also true.
Question 4. Was Lavender dreading her young rabbit dying?
No.
Well, of course I didn't want him to die. That's not what I was saying. That you weren't anticipating him to be dying, which is what leads to dread.
Sick. He wasn't old. He didn't have a disease.
Right.
You didn't have a mountain lion living next door to you that you
don't live in the swamp with crocodiles. Like,
right. I'm pretty sure this is more of a surprise than oh dear, every night I can't go to sleep because I'm afraid my poor baby rabbit is going to pass away soon.
And if you were that worried, like, why didn't you take it to school with you? Like, why doesn't she have her rabbit at school with her?
No.
I don't know. Question 5. Are you as ambitious about the Gryffindor Quidditch team's prospects this year as Oliver and really the rest of the team? They all seem pretty up on themselves this year.
They do have a very strong sense of self-belief and confidence in their dominance over everyone else. And I agree, they're a good team. I tend to think that the more confident you get, the harder it will be when you fall.
Yeah, no, you can definitely kind of fool yourself into overreaching. I don't know if is that the best, you know what I'm saying?
Overconfidence.
Yeah, overconfidence and undercompensation kind of deal.
Yes.
But it seems like they're using it to really drive them. It seems like they're using it as a means to train harder, which, at least at this point, I think is an overall positive. So I think I like their chances. That's just the way that they're actually backing up their confidence with the training that goes along with that.
All right. So, Luke, let's go ahead and get into your favorite line.
So, my favorite line, and I'll actually, just to the camera for you, it's the highlighted pink there.
Holy,
it was like 4 paragraphs. And so I trimmed it down, but it's like the entire conversation between Lupin and Harry about why.
Hold on, I gotta get comfortable for this one.
No, I trimmed it down to the essence. But it's in that part where he's trying to describe, like, hey, this is why I didn't let you fight him. And I'm going to start with,
"Clearly, I was wrong," said Lupin, still frowning at Harry, "but I didn't think it a good idea for Lord Voldemort to materialize in the staff room. I imagined that people would panic. But then," said Harry honestly, I remembered those Dementors." "I see," said Lupin thoughtfully. Well, I'm impressed." He smiled slightly at the look of surprise on Harry's face. That suggests that what you fear most of all is fear. Very wise, Harry.
It's a good line, and it's what Harry needed. He was given the chance to ask the question and be honest with the teacher that, hey, I wasn't too happy about not giving a chance, not being given a chance, and Lupin had a good reason.
Right.
And he let him know.
Okay. It is a good line.
How about you?
Okay, so it's less of a line and more of a word. I went opposite. You went with paragraphs. I have a favorite word.
Okay.
My favorite word in this chapter is Professor Head. When Peeves is talking to Dumbledore at the very end, and he says, "Oh yes, Professor Head." Because
another one that I missed. That's
even in his like, oh, I can't quite taunt Dumbledore. I'm gonna take Professor and your headship and all. In fact, he calls him your headship, sir, at one point. So my favorite line is a word, and it's Professor Head.
I'm gonna go and say I like to imagine Peeves as Richie Tozier and leave that comment at that.
Yes.
But that makes it more enjoyable.
Right. So, last thing. Who is your chapter MVP?
This one was pretty easy, I thought. Professor Lupin is great in this chapter. Great in class. I mean, only Malfoy and his cronies or whatever don't like him. Clearly, all the students are learning a lot, so he's being a very good teacher. And the whole scene, and this is the third time I've said it, but the scene between him and Harry is just good for both of them, and I like that a lot.
I agree with you.
How about you? Who's your honorable mention?
Okay, so I'm literally picking it right now. I think Lupin is by far the chapter MVP, and that's who I was going to pick also. So I've really been racking my brain for a while. But then I remembered that this is also the chapter where McGonagall tells Harry, no, I can't sign your Hogsmeade permission slip. And it's not a big part of the chapter. And she sure comes off as kind of tough and gruff. But there's a moment where she takes a moment and almost looks like she's getting choked up, almost, because she gets the problem. And she says, she turns to look at him with an odd expression on her face. Was it pity? I'm sorry, Potter, but that's my final word. So I think McGonagall is the honorable mention because while she is a stickler for rules and has to stick to the guidelines. And again, his guardian didn't say yes. So it is like a liability thing.
Yeah.
I think that small moment shows she understands how hard that has to be. And she feels bad for him.
Mm-hmm. We get a more human moment from her.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good pick.
Hey, guess what?
What?
We're done.
Hey, chapter 8.
That's it for chapter 8.
In the books.
Woo. No, out of the books. We finished talking about it.
From the book.
There you go. And because we're done, we're going to do the requisite, hey, all the places you can talk to us in the next week before you get to our next chapter. These include Twitter. That's the big one. Find us there at Not Named Podcast. We have a website, thepodcastthat.com, and you can email us if you're one of those people at thepodcastthatmustnotbenamed at gmail.com.
Subscribe and rate to this and all of our shows on iTunes. Rate and leave comments there. Give us 5 stars. Give us 3 stars. Whatever you think we truly deserve, we appreciate it. And leave comments. That goes a long way. We love to hear from you. Special thanks to Hemi for our voice from the Imaginary Legion.
Join us next week when we discuss chapter number 9.
Grim Defeat. Stay imaginary.
Thanks.
Hi everyone, Luke here. Just wanted to check in with you guys and let you know that we were again invited to be on Hogwarts Radio this week. Melissa wasn't able to make it, so I invited our friends over at Accio Politics to join us. So first off, check out their show. It's awesome. I love it. Accio Politics podcast. And you can listen to myself and Aaron and Adriana from Accio Politics join Terrence, Bailey, and Dana on the Hogwarts Radio podcast number 189 this week, discussing the new Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald trailer.